have t-shirt paraphernalia for the Eagles for next week, the Super Bowl. Guy over here using a water jug for the drum corps. I haven't heard them in a while, by the way. Often, at least during spring and summer, there's sort of a drum corps that goes around and beats the drum, often at night, like somewhere between 8 and 10 typically. Anyway, please like, share, and subscribe. Just click the subscribe button. I would be so appreciative as I'm trying to grow the channel. I changed the name a little bit. I altered it to not just Serpico Dreams, but Serpico Dreams PHL TV. Just because whenever I'm on the streets, I'll just walk around with this and then I'll post it, and it's like having a little Center City, you know, circuit, closed circuit, or Center City TV. But anyway, I also wanted to talk about you know, the type of path that I chose, I didn't know what to do, to be honest. I was typical of the 80s and 90s generation. You go to school, you're not sure what you're supposed to do, you change your major. I didn't do that, but you try to figure out where you can work. And I don't know that I would recommend writing as a or English as a degree, because you'd have to really be, you know, hell-bent or really set on going into teaching and know what that's about. But anyway, so I wound up sort of on this weird path where I've had to hustle my whole life. I'm sort of a do-it-yourselfer, so I'm not used to feeling overly supported, at least monetarily, you know. It can seem like, you know, anyway, we'll just, you know, I figured I'd read the amount of jobs that I've had since, well, really, in high school. I started in high school. We were supposed to develop a work ethic and everything. So in fact, it was so much so that I worked half a day and went to school half a day for the last 2 years of my high school career at Christiana High School. So I figured I'd read all the jobs that I've had since about 1985, 86. And I put it all in a list here, but we've got Burger King. I was on Burger Board, Whopper Board, Specialty Board, which is a fish board for the fish sandwich. Cashier and drive-thru. MBNA credit card bank. I was like an assistant to a secretary, and I did that half day my junior and senior years. So I would pull a lot of feet. Back then they had these fiche machines. Basically it's like all your credit card information and statements are like on microfiche, they would call it. So it's an old school way. They probably wouldn't need to use that method these days, since everything's digitized, but it's a way to archive people's statements, you know, since the beginning of time. University of Delaware. I wound up with a Pell Grant work study qualification, so I worked in the student loan department my freshman year. Then I worked in special collections at the library. I was at Strawbridge and Clothier as seasonal help. And let's see here. I did alumni calling for donations and gifting. So I was on the hotline. I did that for a while. I kept trying to figure out how to keep earning money. I'm adding in here other jobs that weren't monetized. So I worked with the Yearbook group for a while, because since I was an English major, I joined up, you know, with trying to help with layout and editing of the University of Delaware Yearbook. It was hard to balance everything, so some things you do more of than others, but I did do that. I worked for the Update faculty newspaper. It was technically an internship as a student, and I was a contributing writer, and I worked in the office helping to proof and write pieces for that faculty newspaper at the University of Delaware. Let's see. Also, I was an assistant to an office manager in the physical therapy office at the University of Delaware. Her name was Jan. I remember her. And with the recent fires in the Palisades, there was a woman who's like an officiator in the Palisades area or Southern California. And I was like, she is that's the Jan lineage. Like, she has a very similar blonde hair, like a more stern look. Like, it's hard to explain. So anyway, I also worked in the MBNA credit card collections department for a while. I didn't love that because I totally understand if you can't pay your bill. I worked at the YMCA membership window for people signing in all the time and getting their locker keys or whatever way back in the day on Lancaster Avenue in Wilmington, Delaware. I worked at Rodale Manufacturing. This used to be like a manufacturer of some sort of materials, I forget because it's been so long. I was a temp employee there. That was down near the 896 exit for the University of Delaware on I-95. I worked for Grotto Pizza at Dewey Beach in Delaware. I so much wanted to be able to experience that whole thing of working at the beach, even though a lot of people are like, don't do that, you know, but it's like I wanted to be able to find networks of people and be a part of something. Anyway, having been through Weight Watchers, and I wound up working for Weight Watchers as an assistant manager because the weigh-in locations turned into stores and they rolled out their personal cuisine frozen entrees. So they would later, those entrees would later show up, you know, in actual supermarkets and stores, and people still eat them today, I believe. But I was an assistant manager, so I opened and closed. We maintained inventory in a freezer. There were little freezers in the back, and we would pick and pack. I also worked for Amazon picking and packing. The order isn't perfect here, but I worked for Amazon warehouse way back when they were brand new. They had a location near the major post office in Newcastle, Delaware, off of Route 13, I believe. Let's see. I also did international study, international relations through the University of Delaware in Switzerland. That was a thing that I wanted to do because I thought that it would put me in company with people who could help me find better jobs, you know, and up my career. I was a camp counselor in Randolph, New Jersey, the year that the kids went to Atlanta, Georgia for the Summer Olympics, 1996. They actually had a bomb at in the Olympic Village, and we missed the bomb by like 10 minutes. So it was some sort of weird thing. I worked at the fitness centers at the University of Delaware. They opened new fitness centers over by the East Campus, I guess. Harrington, I think it's like Russell and Harrington, I kind of forget the names. Also up at the Carpenter Sports Center, worked there. Let's see, I went back to MBNA Credit Card Bank to work as a fraud analyst and a credit analyst. I wound up with Lending Authority. A lot of people did, but you could lend up to $5,000 or $10,000 to people seeking to increase their credit lines back in the 90s. I wrote for Big Shout magazine as a contributing writer, so I did a lot of music reviews of local bands and CDs that they would send in. Like 1 million people send in their CDs, you know. I was a waitress at Ruby Tuesdays at the Crusader Mall. I got the Amazon. I went through Kelly's Services and worked at as a temp at a lot of places. So I worked at the Bank of New York, Discover Bank. Those are two that I can think of right offhand through there. Also, I worked as an intern for WHYY Channel 12 in Wilmington, Delaware. So I even got to produce a piece on April 20th, Hemp Day, which is like, you know,